Secret Intelligence Service. He that is cruel to the wicked becomes wicked himself. William Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616. Here's a fun fact for all of you. I was a spy for Her Majesty's Secret Service. Like James Bond, Agent 007. I worked for the Secret Intelligence Service. My last contribution, before I abandoned Joseph Lucifer Black to his luck, had to do with Queen Elizabeth II. I prevented an Eastern European man from sneaking into her room. It sounds strange, I know. You must be wondering, why on earth would the British Intelligence Service hire such an eccentric medium for the job? I won't go into details now. I'd rather leave those for later. I'll just say this. We humans experience reality at ground level, while spirits observe it from a distance, one that grants them objectivity. In simple terms, they anticipate events and can explore the future. I'm editing my article, Interview with Anne Boleyn. I'm very meticulous with my corrections, even more so in this case, because from everything she's told me, there are things which are publishable and things which are not. No one cares about my personal life, and my great-great-great-grandmother was extremely talkative. Removing what cannot be shared is what delays me. I usually submit my report to my boss several days in advance. Anyway, let's go back to the espionage issue. I must confess that my involvement was irregular because that bastard Joseph Black tricked me. He recruited me before I finished college and made me work for free, while he accepted the honours on my behalf. But a week ago, I got my revenge on that filthy liar, and I assure you, revenge is a dish that, if served cold, provides the greatest pleasure to the senses. I raise my Prince of Wales mug and shout, "Merry Christmas, Joseph, choke on your roasted turkey," although I don't know if they grant you such luxuries in prison. Here's to Joseph Lucifer Black's arrest. He was detained at a service station in Reading, near London, while being paid £250,000 to mediate a public contract in favour of two foreign arms companies, one Belgian and the other Israeli. The British justice system is less lenient than those of the developing countries in Southern Europe. We, the English, do not forgive corruption among members of the Foreign Office. And we tolerate even less a case like this, which represents an absolute betrayal of our country's values. It was, moreover, the ultimate expression of poetic justice, since that spawn of the devil summoned me with the intention of offering me a deal to work for MI6. And he did so on the right flank of a gas station in Warwick, right in the area where the video surveillance cameras couldn't reach us. Why is he so obsessed with this kind of shady business? Maybe because the agents have big guns and he still hasn't decided to come out of the closet. I'm sure that in jail he'll take the steps to do it, whether he wants to or not. I admit that I'm evil and that I wish him the worst, but Black is Lucifer. Or perhaps he's Death. Not the handsome one from the movie Meet Joe Black, personified by Brad Pitt's gorgeous young face. No, it's a cruel and ugly Death, just like him. Although that doesn't matter, because to celebrate his imprisonment, I bought the Aston Martin DB10 from the movie Spectre, in his honour. My adoptive father, Anthony, was completely transfixed when he told me that Lucifer wouldn't escape prison. Although I should call him the Ghost, as he likes me to jokingly call him. I'll explain why. He's the spirit who has made me laugh the most since I was a kid, and the only one who ever declared himself my protector during my days at boarding school. And now, he's dedicated his time to driving my enemy crazy. I'm telling you this to entertain you. At first, he hid Black's keys, misplaced the pages of his newspaper, his glasses, and his toiletries. So much so that his wife, sweet Jane, started thinking Black was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. More recently, in prison, he stole Evil John's, the most feared inmate's sketchbook, and slipped it under Joseph's mattress. We're both hoping he finds it soon, since he's been frantically searching for it. I'd like to digress for a moment and say that the best thing in life is having friends like Anthony and Sir Nathan. I mustn't forget that without Nat's involvement, my existence would have been far duller and much more complicated. Thanks to him, Black is now confined. And all because 3 weeks ago, I told my boss, while I was in his bed, I need you to deliver this envelope, which contains sensitive information, to the director of MI6. But don't tell him who your source is. Just say it concerns British national security. And don't read it either, please. Why are you coming to me for this? He asked, getting on top of me and looking into my eyes. Feeling his erection nearly broke my focus. You know, the director through your mother, he added. That's exactly why I'm coming to you, I said, brushing my tongue along his earlobe. I don't want him to know it was me. I'd be eternally grateful if you did me this favour. He shuddered with pleasure. The information in the envelope will put an end to Joseph Black's political influence, I insisted, flirtatious and full of persuasion. I promise you'll sweep the MI6 director off his feet, and he'll be forever in your debt. And I'd owe you a huge favour too. Think about it, darling, but don't ask me anything else. That's the only condition. All right, he finally agreed. Save next Saturday for me. We're going to the Royal Opera to see Tristan and Isolde. Even though he asked me to make an enormous effort, I didn't protest. This was a truly gigantic sacrifice for me, because I can't stand opera. Nathan, on the other hand, is very passionate about it, and whenever he invites me to a show, I refuse to go. He says you either love it or hate it, and that there's no in between. But I don't feel either way. I just find it soporific. I arrive at my seat, sit down, and fall asleep at the first note, even though the singers pierce my eardrums with their hysterical screams. The only positive thing is that I don't snore. For this reason, my parents stopped dragging me to the theatre by force when I was 17, because they were fed up with me embarrassing them in front of the English aristocracy. You can't say that Sir Nathan is dumb. In fact, he's very clever and had every reason to be intrigued by my request, mainly because my family's ties to the Secret Service go back a long way. My maternal great-grandfather, Michael Herbert, Duke of Pembroke, was a friend of Captain George Mansfield Smith Cumming. I write Smith in parentheses out of respect. He always omitted it. I dare say he hated it because it was a fairly common name. At that time, back in 909, when George founded the organisation, it was called something else, the Secret Intelligence Bureau, and it was structured quite differently than it is today. My grandmother used to tell me that the captain always carried a green pen with him, and that he used it to sign all sorts of documents. With the emerald ink, he would write the C of his surname. For this reason, in his honour, all the top officers in the service have since adopted the code name C. In the books by Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, he appears as M. I've always had a great interest in MI6's headquarters at Vauxhall Cross, mainly because it looks like it was built out of Lego bricks. That's why we all call it Legoland. This is how it protects the British capital, the city it overlooks, from all its enemies. And it even has the luxury of protecting the rest of the world. It's remarkably effective. It doesn't have any office dedicated to communication with the media, because neither the service nor the government is supposed to comment on its operations. They maintain even greater secrecy when it comes to employees, sources of information, spies, or connections to foreign intelligence services. Can you imagine the public backlash they would have faced if a stranger had managed to sneak into the Queen's bedroom, like Michael Fagan did in 1982? Especially now that social media exists and information spreads instantly? They should have at least thanked me for the gratuitous favour I did them. Let's take a little trip back in time so you can better understand what I'm talking about. In the 1980s, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II awoke to find Fagin sitting on her bed after he had opened a curtain. The police were called, taking 20 minutes to arrive after the maid raised the alarm. But the intruder still had 600 seconds to share his troubles with the sovereign. Even though those minutes must have seemed endless, Her Majesty remained calm and collected, in typical Windsor fashion. The stranger told her about the things that troubled him: his terrible luck, his wife's infidelity, and his struggles with his 4 children. All the while, he held an ashtray in his hand, and blood was oozing from a wound. But I must stop my gossiping. Duty calls. How can I waste time dwelling on past events? Work comes first. I'm still stuck with the damn Anne Boleyn interview. I'm tempted to leave it just as it is, so as not to meddle with it any further. Normally, I just transcribe the dialogue, but now I've set my mind on changing my usual writing style, because I want to keep the personal details she shared to myself. I'm not interested in people knowing the names of the men I've been with or what future we might share. I recognise that dialogue makes the relationship between the interviewee and the reader feel closer. But the great pitfall in this case is that I don't want to disclose my relative's confessions. Although I'm amazed when I read her predictions, the details about my possible futures are fascinating. Am I selfish because I don't want the reader to witness the most relevant events of my private life? I'm so obsessed with discretion that the thought of using free indirect style has crossed my mind. But I've ruled it out. People read each story because I write them. A third-person point of view would give the impression that the text was written by someone else, and my audience should never doubt my authorship. I'm something of a media star, the eccentric aristocrat who's into spirits. Fortunately, I have someone to portray. Say, because if my entire family were as boring and formal as my parents, we'd be unbearable. My maternal grandmother is as much a black sheep as I am, and she writes highly erotic romance novels. I'm hesitating over whether to give my article a more historical and less morbid tone. On second thought, I'll send it as it is. I don't know why I'm so worried. After all, my boss is Sir Nathan, and I know a few tricks straight out from both the Kama Sutra to make him think my article is the 8th wonder of the world.